She hid her son from a Korean billionaire CEO, until a rare blood type saved his life. You have exactly 30 seconds to explain why I should answer a call from a ghost. The voice cut through the phone line like ice, sharp, controlled, and unmistakably Siwoo Kang's. Ramada's grip tightened around the phone until her knuckles went white. The fluorescent lights of Seoul National Hospital's emergency corridor blurred into halos. Behind her, monitors beeped in mechanical rhythm. Medical staff rushed past. But all she could hear was the silence on the other end of that line, the silence of a man she'd sworn never to contact again. Siwoo. Her voice cracked. It's Ramada. The pause stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. Ramada Diallo. He said her full name like he was reading an obituary. You disappeared 6 years ago. Changed your name. Erased yourself from existence. Why would I waste another second of my life on someone who treated me like I was disposable? I didn't call for me. Then why? I'm standing outside the pediatric ICU right now, and the doctors just told me they're out of options. I don't care about your emergencies. His voice was stone. You made your choice when you vanished. It's not my emergency. Ramada looked through the glass at the small body in bed 4, tubes snaking from his arms, curls plastered to his forehead, skin ashen under hospital lights. It's his. Whose? She closed her eyes. He's 6 years old. He loves science puzzles and hates loud crowds. He has your exact smile, Siwoo. Your thoughtful silence. Your rare blood type. And right now, her voice broke, right now, he's dying because you're the only documented match in all of Asia. The line went dead silent. Siwoo. Are you there? What did you just say? His name is Malik Khan. And he needs his father. If you've ever had to make a phone call that shattered everything you thought was true, hit that subscribe button, because Ramada just revealed a 6-year secret to the most powerful CEO in Korea, and what he does next will change 3 lives forever. Let's go back 6 years to understand why she ran, and why coming back might destroy them all. 6 years earlier. The Gangnam district hummed with the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. Glass towers reflected clouds and ambition in equal measure. At the center of it all stood the Kongjin Holdings headquarters, a 40-story monument to old money, new technology, and ruthless precision. Ramada Diallo stood on the marble steps, adjusting the strap of her leather portfolio and smoothing the jacket of her charcoal suit. She was 28, brilliant, and acutely aware that every eye in the lobby would be on her the moment she walked through those doors. As a Senegalese French woman in one of Asia's most homogeneous corporate cultures, she knew what being noticed meant. It meant scrutiny. It meant assumptions. It meant having to be twice as good to be considered half as competent. But Ramada wasn't here to blend in. She'd been headhunted from Paris, a logistics analyst with a reputation for dismantling inefficient systems and rebuilding them from scratch. Kongjin Holdings was hemorrhaging money in their supply chain, and she had 6 months to stop the bleeding. She took a breath, pushed through the revolving doors, and prepared to meet the dragon. The rumors about Siwoo Kang were legend. They called him the Steel King, 32 years old, Harvard-educated, heir to an empire built on his father's early death and his mother's iron will. He was known for 3 things: never raising his voice, never tolerating excuses, and never, ever smiling in business meetings. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending into thinner air. When the doors opened, Ramada stepped into a boardroom that looked like it cost more than most people's houses. 15 executives in identical dark suits sat around a table of polished black walnut. At the head of the table sat Siwoo Kang. He was more striking in person than any photograph could capture. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled black hair, and eyes that seemed to dissect everything they landed on. He didn't look up when she entered. Just kept reading a document in front of him, pen poised over a signature line. "You're late, Ms. Diallo." His English was flawless, barely accented, low and measured. Ramada checked her watch. I'm exactly on time, Mr. Kong. The meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. In Korea, punctuality means arriving 15 minutes early to review materials and prepare your mind. If you cannot manage your own time, how will you manage our failing logistics network? The other executives shifted uncomfortably, waiting for the foreign consultant to apologize and bow. Ramada didn't bow. She walked to the empty chair opposite him and set her tablet down with a deliberate click. If I arrived 15 minutes early, Mr. Kong, I'd be wasting company resources waiting for a meeting that hasn't started. Efficiency isn't about performing respect. It's about delivering results when it matters. And I'm ready to deliver. The room fell silent. No one spoke to Siwoo Kong like that. Not his board. Not his mother. Certainly not a new hire. Siwoo looked up slowly, his gaze locking onto hers for the first time. For 3 long seconds, he said nothing. Then the corner of his mouth shifted, barely perceptible, gone as quickly as it appeared. Sit down, Ms. Diallo. His voice was softer now, almost curious. Show me what I paid for. Over the next 90 minutes, Ramada did exactly that. She dismantled Kongjin Holdings' entire logistics framework with surgical precision. Her presentation wasn't flashy, no elaborate graphics, no corporate jargon designed to impress. Just data, patterns, and solutions that made the company's inefficiencies look like open wounds. Your Seoul to Busan distribution route loses 4 hours per shipment because you're prioritizing seniority over geography, she said, pulling up a heat map. Your senior drivers get first choice of routes regardless of proximity. It's costing you 2.3 million won per week. One of the older executives cleared his throat. Ms. Diallo, in Korean business culture, we respect hierarchy, Ramada finished calmly. I understand. But your competitors don't care about hierarchy. They care about speed. And right now, they're beating you. Siwoo said nothing. Just watched her with those analytical eyes. By the time she finished, 3 executives were taking notes. 2 others looked offended. Siwoo leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. You may go, he said to the room. The exodus was swift and silent. Ramada gathered her tablet, assuming she was dismissed too. Not you, Ms. Diallo. She froze halfway to standing. Siwoo waited until the door clicked shut before speaking again. You just told some of the most powerful men in this company that they're failing. Do you have any idea what you've done? My job, Ramada said evenly. Your job is to advise. Not humiliate. I didn't humiliate anyone. I showed them the truth. What they do with it is their choice. For the first time, something flickered across Siwoo's face, not anger, but something closer to curiosity. You're either very brave or very foolish. I'm neither, Mr. Kong. I'm just not interested in pretending problems don't exist. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced precision. 6 months. That's your contract. After today, it might be 6 days. Ramada met his gaze without flinching. Then I'll make them count. 6 weeks later. Ramada had learned the unwritten rules quickly: arrive early, leave late, bow at precisely the right angle, never speak unless spoken to in meetings with senior staff. She followed none of them. Not out of disrespect, but because invisibility, she discovered, was its own kind of power. While other analysts scrambled for face time with executives, Ramada focused on making herself indispensable through results alone. Her reports landed on desks at dawn. Her projections were always conservative and always accurate. She asked questions no one else thought to ask, found solutions no one else bothered to look for. And Siwoo Kong noticed. He never said so directly. But Ramada started receiving emails at odd hours, 11 p.m., 2 a.m., with single-line questions. Projected savings if we consolidate Incheon warehouses? Fastest turnaround time for supplier contracts in Southeast Asia? She always answered. Concisely. Accurately. Without asking why he needed to know. In the office, they barely spoke. But their exchanges in email grew longer, sharper, professional sparring matches that left Ramada checking her phone at midnight, half smiling at his terse replies. Ms. Diallo, your analysis contradicts our CFO's projections. Then your CFO is wrong, Mr. Khan. Prove it. She did. It was during an emergency board meeting in late October that everything shifted. Kangjin's largest supplier had just breached contract, threatening to halt production on their flagship tech line. Panic rippled through the executive suite. Siwoo called an immediate meeting, 8 p.m., all department heads mandatory. Ramada wasn't a department head. But she came anyway. She sat in the back row, tablet balanced on her knee, listening as grown men proposed increasingly desperate solutions. Pay the premium. Sue for damages. Find a new supplier in 60 days. Siwoo listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Then his gaze found Ramada in the back. Ms. Diallo. You've been reviewing our supplier contracts for 6 weeks. Do you have anything useful to contribute, or are you just here to observe our failure? Every head in the room turned. Ramada stood slowly. There's a clause in the original 2019 contract. Section 14, subsection C. If the supplier breaches terms due to third-party interference, Kangjin Holdings retains right to seize inventory already in production as compensation. Silence. No one's triggered that clause in 15 years, the legal director said dismissively. Because no one's read the contract in 15 years, Ramada replied. But it's there. Enforceable. And based on current inventory records, you could seize enough product to cover 3 months of production while you transition suppliers. Siwoo's eyes never left her face. Are you certain? I don't speak unless I'm certain, Mr. Khan. The faintest smile ghosted across his lips. No. You don't. He turned to his legal team. Execute it. The meeting ended 30 minutes later. Disaster averted. Ramada slipped toward the exit. Ms. Diallo. She stopped. Siwoo stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, hands in his pockets. The building was nearly empty now, just the hum of cleaning crews and the city lights bleeding through glass. Stay, he said quietly. We need to discuss your contract. Ramada's pulse quickened, but her voice remained steady. Is there a problem? No. He turned to face her fully. That's exactly the problem. You're too good to be temporary. The space between them felt suddenly smaller, charged with something neither acknowledged. I have 45 more logistics assessments to review before your contract ends, Siwoo continued. But tonight, I want to understand something. What? Why are you here? Why are you alone? And why someone with your skill set is content to be invisible? Ramada held his gaze. Maybe invisibility is the only way to survive in places that don't want you. For a long moment, Siwoo said nothing. Then, I want you. On my team. Permanently. The words hung in the air between them, professional, and yet somehow not. I'll think about it, Ramada said softly. Don't think too long, Ms. Diallo. His voice dropped lower. I don't make offers twice. She nodded and turned toward the door. But as she walked away, she felt his eyes on her back, and for the first time in 6 years, Ramada wondered if invisibility was really what she wanted after all. The late night started innocently enough. I need your assessment on the Tokyo expansion by morning, Siwoo would say at 7 p.m., when the office had already emptied. Ramada would nod, pull up her files, and stay. At first, they worked in separate rooms, Siwoo in his glass-walled office, Ramada at the conference table outside. But by the 3rd week, he'd started bringing 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. By the 5th, he was sitting across from her, reviewing contracts in comfortable silence. It was during one of those nights that the work stopped mattering. Why logistics? Siwoo asked suddenly, not looking up from his laptop. Ramada paused mid-sentence in her report. What? You could have done anything. Law. Finance. Why supply chains? She leaned back, considering. Because logistics is about making invisible things work. No one notices a supply chain until it breaks. I like being the person who makes sure it doesn't. Siwoo's eyes lifted to hers. You like being invisible. I like being essential without being seen, she corrected. There's a difference. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I understand that more than you know. 2 weeks later. Do you ever leave this building? Ramada asked one Friday evening, watching Siwoo sign off on his 7th approval form in a row. Rarely. When was the last time you saw the river? He frowned. The Han? I don't know. Years, maybe. Ramada stood, closing her laptop with a decisive click. Come on. I have 3 more. They'll still be there in an hour. Come on. To her surprise, he stood. The Han River at night was a different world, joggers on the paths, couples on benches, the city skyline reflecting off dark water like scattered stars. They walked in silence at first, hands in pockets, shoulders nearly touching. My father used to bring me here, Siwoo said quietly. Before he died. We'd sit on that bench, he pointed, and he'd tell me about the company he was building. How it would change our family's future. How old were you? 8 when he started. 12 when he had the heart attack. Siwoo's voice was flat, factual. My mother finished what he started. She had to. The board wanted to dismantle everything, sell it off piece by piece. She fought them all. Alone. That's why she's so unforgiving. Siwoo's mouth twisted. She can't afford to be anything else. Compassion is a luxury. Affection is weakness. Love is, he stopped himself. A liability, Ramada finished softly. He looked at her, surprised. Yes. My parents used to say something similar, Ramada said. Not about business. About survival. When you're foreign everywhere you go, too African for France, too French for Senegal, you learn that vulnerability gets weaponized. So you stay sharp. Stay guarded. And lonely, Siwoo added. And lonely, she agreed. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, recognition, understanding, a shared exhaustion with armor they'd both worn too long. Siwoo's hand found hers in the darkness. Neither of them pulled away. 3 months in. The dinners became routine. Small restaurants where no one from Kongjin Holdings would think to look. Ramada introduced Siwoo to Senegalese Maif. He taught her how to properly eat galbi. They argued about efficiency models and laughed about terrible clients and slowly, carefully, let their guards down. Do you know what my mother said when I told her I was hiring you permanently? Siwoo asked one night over soju. I can imagine. She said, don't confuse competence with compatibility. He swirled his glass. She meant romantically. Ramada's pulse quickened. And what did you say? That she was right. His eyes held hers. Competence and compatibility are completely different things. Siwoo. But sometimes, he continued, voice dropping lower, you find both in the same person. And that's when it becomes dangerous. Ramada should have pulled back. Should have reminded him about professionalism, about her contract, about the impossible gap between their worlds. Instead, she leaned forward. Maybe dangerous isn't always bad. The kiss happened in the space between breaths, soft, inevitable, terrifying in its rightness. When they pulled apart, Siwoo rested his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he whispered. I know, Ramada whispered back. Neither of them moved. 6 weeks later. Ramada noticed the stairs first. Administrative assistants whispering when she passed. Senior executives watching her too closely in meetings. The way conversations stopped when she entered the break room. People are talking, she told Siwoo one night in his apartment, a space she'd started staying in more often than her own. Let them talk. Siwoo, I'm serious. This could hurt you. You think I care what they think? I think your mother does. His jaw tightened. My mother doesn't control my personal life. Doesn't she? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant, Chairwoman Kong requests your presence. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Private office. Siwoo's expression darkened. Ramada's stomach dropped. She knows, Ramada said quietly. Siwoo pulled her closer. It doesn't matter. But they both knew it did. Outside the window, Seoul glittered, beautiful, indifferent, and full of eyes that had already started watching. The summons came on a Tuesday morning. Not from Siwoo. Not from HR. From a private number Ramada didn't recognize, with a message that made her blood run cold, Chairwoman Kong requests your presence. Executive Suite A, 10 a.m. Come alone. Ramada had never been to the executive suite. Few people had. It occupied the entire top floor of Kongjin Holdings, a space reserved for family, legacy, and a kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. The elevator ride felt like ascending toward judgment. When the doors opened, a stern-faced assistant was waiting. She said nothing, just gestured down a hallway lined with photographs, black and white images of Kongjin's founding, of Siwoo's father shaking hands with presidents, of the empire built on sacrifice and steel. At the end of the hall was a door of dark wood. The assistant knocked once, then left. Enter. The voice was crisp, commanding, and utterly devoid of warmth. Ramada pushed open the door. Chairwoman Kong sat behind a desk that looked more like a throne. She was smaller than Ramada expected, elegant, perfectly composed, dressed in a cream suit that probably cost more than Ramada's entire wardrobe. Her hair was swept back in a flawless chignon, her posture rigid as architecture. But it was her eyes that stopped Ramada cold. Dark, assessing, and completely emotionless. Sit, Chairwoman Kong said. Not an invitation. A command. Ramada sat. For a long moment, the older woman simply studied her, like a scientist examining a specimen under glass. You are younger than I expected, Chairwoman Kong said finally. And quieter. I can see why he finds you refreshing. Ramada said nothing. You've been with Kongjin Holdings for 4 months. Your work is exceptional. My son speaks highly of your competence. She paused. Unfortunately, competence is not the issue. Then what is? You are. The words landed like a blade. You are foreign. You are black. You are temporary. And you have somehow convinced my son that you are more than all of those things. Ramada's hands tightened in her lap. With respect, Chairwoman Kong. Do not interrupt me. The command was soft but absolute. I am not here to debate your worth. I am here to make you understand reality. She opened a drawer and placed an envelope on the desk between them. Inside is a sum equivalent to 3 years of your current salary. Enough to return to Paris, to start over, to disappear comfortably. All I require is your signature on a standard non-disclosure agreement and your immediate resignation. Ramada stared at the envelope. You're buying me off. I am offering you a solution that benefits everyone. Everyone except your son. Chairwoman Kang's expression didn't flicker. My son is the heir to a conglomerate worth 4.7 trillion won. He has responsibilities you cannot comprehend. A legacy that predates your existence. And a future that has already been carefully arranged. Arranged. Ramada's voice was hollow. You mean the engagement? Yes. No apology. No softening. To the daughter of the Minister of Trade. A union that will secure Kongjin's expansion into government contracts for the next decade. It was decided years ago. Does Siwoo know this? Siwoo knows what duty requires. Chairwoman Kong leaned forward slightly. He is brilliant, Miss Diallo. But he is also my son. And like his father before him, he sometimes confuses temporary passion for permanent commitment. I'm not temporary. Everyone is temporary to men like him. Her voice was almost gentle now, the gentleness of a surgeon before cutting. You are an interlude. A rebellion. A way for him to feel human before he accepts what he was always meant to be. Ramada's throat tightened. You don't know what we. I know everything. Chairwoman Kong opened a folder. Inside were photographs, Ramada and Siwoo at the river, entering his apartment building, sitting close at a restaurant. I have known for 6 weeks. I waited to see if it would burn itself out. It hasn't. She closed the folder with finality. So now you have a choice, Miss Diallo. Take the money. Sign the agreement. Leave quietly. Or stay, and watch me destroy everything my son has worked for. I will pull board support. Collapse investor confidence. Frame his judgment as compromised. By the time I'm finished, Siwoo won't have a company to run. He'll have a scandal to survive. You would do that to your own son. I would do that for my son. Chairwoman Kang's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Because unlike you, I love him enough to protect him from himself. Ramada stood on shaking legs. I need to think. You have 24 hours. The chairwoman turned back to her computer, dismissing her. After that, I take the choice out of your hands. Ramada barely remembered leaving the building. She walked for hours through Seoul streets, Chairwoman Kang's words echoing in her skull. Temporary. Interlude. Rebellion. By the time she returned to her apartment, night had fallen. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. 2 pink lines. Clear. Definitive. Impossible to deny. She was carrying Siwoo Kang's child. The child of a man whose mother had just threatened to destroy him. The child who would become leverage, ammunition, a weapon in a war Ramada never wanted to fight. If you stay, Siwoo loses everything. If you leave, he never has to know. Ramada pressed her forehead against her knees and made the only choice she could live with. At 3 a.m., she packed a single suitcase. Changed her phone number. Withdrew her savings in cash. Left her apartment key on the counter with no forwarding address. By dawn, Ramada Diallo had vanished from Kongjin Holdings, from Siwoo's life, and from every database that could trace her. She didn't leave a note. She didn't say goodbye. She just disappeared, taking Siwoo's unborn child into the shadows, where love couldn't be weaponized and silence was the only protection left. Ramada didn't leave Korea. She couldn't. Leaving meant international travel records, passport flags, digital footprints that Chairwoman Kang's resources could trace in minutes. So instead, she went somewhere the empire would never think to look, down. Incheon's outskirts weren't glamorous. No glass towers, no riverside views. Just rows of modest apartments where migrant workers, retirees, and people who preferred anonymity lived their lives in comfortable obscurity. Ramada rented a 1-bedroom unit on the 4th floor of a building with faulty elevator lighting and a landlord who asked no questions. She paid in cash. Used her middle name, Marie. Told neighbors she was a French translator working remotely. It wasn't a lie, exactly. She did translate, shipping contracts, technical manuals, legal documents, working through the night while her belly grew rounder, while Seoul's skyline glittered in the distance like a city she'd only dreamed. Malik was born on a Tuesday in February, during a snowstorm that blanketed Incheon in white. Ramada held him in the public hospital's maternity ward, counting his fingers, memorizing his face, and saw Siwoo in every feature. The same thoughtful eyes. The same serious expression, even as a newborn. "He looks like he's solving problems already," the nurse said with a smile. Ramada's throat tightened. "Yes. He does." She named him Malik, king, in Arabic, because even if the world would never know his lineage, she wanted him to carry strength in his name. The birth certificate listed no father. The hospital asked no questions. And Ramada brought her son home to a life built on silence and survival. 4 years later. "Mama, why do the numbers do that?" Ramada looked up from her laptop, another late-night translation contract, to find Malik sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by puzzle pieces arranged in perfect mathematical sequences. "Do what, baby?" "They make patterns. See?" He pointed. 2, 4, 8, 16. They're doubling. Like they're growing. He was 4 years old. Ramada's chest tightened with pride and fear in equal measure. "That's very smart, Malik. Can I have more puzzles?" "We'll see." Puzzles were expensive. So were books. So was everything in a life funded by freelance contracts and jobs that paid under the table. But Ramada always found a way: second-hand bookstores, library cards, free educational apps that kept Malik's brilliant mind fed. He absorbed knowledge like other children absorbed cartoons. Science. Mathematics. Languages. By 5, he was reading chapter books in French and Korean. By 6, he was asking questions about physics that Ramada had to research just to answer. "Where do stars go during the day?" he asked one morning. "They're still there. We just can't see them because the sun is brighter." Malik considered this seriously. "So they're hiding? In a way. Like us?" Ramada froze, pan halfway to the stove. "What do you mean?" "We're quiet. We don't talk to many people. We're like stars in the daytime." His 6-year-old logic was flawless and devastating. "Are we hiding too?" Ramada knelt beside him, brushing curls from his forehead, curls that were unmistakably Siwoo's texture mixed with her own. "We're not hiding, sweetheart. We're just careful." "Why?" "Because careful keeps us safe." He nodded, accepting this the way he accepted everything, with trust that broke her heart daily. 6 months later. "Mama?" Malik stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying his reflection with that serious expression he wore when solving problems. "Yes, baby. Why don't I look like anyone else?" Ramada's hand stilled on the laundry she was folding. "What do you mean?" "At school. The other kids have moms and dads who look like them. But I don't look like just you. I look like someone else too." Her heart hammered. "You look like yourself, Malik. That's what matters." "But where's my dad?" The question she'd been dreading for 6 years. "He's..." Ramada swallowed hard. "He's not part of our life." "Why?" "Because sometimes people can't be together, even when they love each other." "Did he love you?" "I think so." "Yes." "Did you love him?" Ramada looked at her son, brilliant, beautiful, innocent, and told the truth. "Very much." "Then why?" "Malik." She pulled him close. "Some questions don't have good answers. But what I can tell you is this: you are wanted. You are loved. And you are exactly who you're supposed to be." He hugged her tight, small arms around her neck. "Okay, Mama." But she saw the question still living in his eyes. The one that would grow louder as he grew older. "Who am I?" And Ramada had no answer that wouldn't destroy them both. 3 months later. The call came at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Ms. Diallo? This is Incheon Elementary. There's been an incident with Malik. Ramada's blood turned to ice. What kind of incident? He collapsed during the science fair. We've called an ambulance. They're taking him to Seoul National Hospital. The phone nearly slipped from her hands. I'm on my way. She grabbed her coat, her wallet, her keys, hands shaking so badly she could barely lock the door. As the taxi raced toward Seoul, toward the hospital, toward the crisis she'd spent 6 years trying to prevent, Ramada whispered a prayer to a God she wasn't sure was listening. Please. Not like this. Not yet. But fear has a way of knowing the future before it arrives. And as the hospital came into view, glass and steel and the kind of advanced medical care only Korea's elite could afford, Ramada realized that running had only ever been delaying the inevitable. Some truths demand to be told. Some secrets refuse to stay buried. And some blood types only have one match in all of Asia. The emergency room at Seoul National Hospital smelled like antiseptic and terror. Ramada burst through the doors, her breath ragged, searching desperately for someone who could tell her where they'd taken her son. Malik Diallo, she gasped at the intake desk. 6 years old. He collapsed at 4th floor. Pediatric ICU. Elevator on your left. Ramada ran. By the time she reached the ICU, doctors were already swarming around bed 4. She could see Malik through the glass, so small, so still, tubes snaking from his arms, monitors beeping in frantic rhythm. A nurse intercepted her. Are you the mother? Yes. What's happening? The doctors will explain. Please wait here. I need to see him. Ma'am. The nurse's voice was gentle but firm. Let them work. 23 minutes later, Ramada counted every one, a doctor emerged. Young, exhausted, with the kind of carefully neutral expression that meant bad news. Ms. Diallo? Yes. I'm Dr. Park. Your son is experiencing acute anemia combined with immune system rejection. His body is attacking his own blood cells. Ramada's knees threatened to buckle. Can you treat it? We need to stabilize him first with a transfusion. But there's a complication. Dr. Park pulled up a tablet. Your son has an extremely rare blood type. Bombay phenotype with specific antigen combinations. We've tested every unit in our blood bank. None are compatible. Then find more. Test more. There has to be. We've expanded the search to the national database. He hesitated. There's only one documented match in all of South Korea. Ramada's world tilted. Who? Dr. Park turned the tablet toward her. Match found, Kong, SIWO. Blood type, Bombay AB negative. Registered donor, yes. Contact, restricted. The name blurred through her tears. Ramada sat in the hospital stairwell for 47 minutes. She held the phone in her hand, Siwoo's private number still saved under a contact she'd never deleted, emergency only. 6 years ago, he'd pressed it into her palm after a late night at the office. Only if it's an emergency, he'd said. This was an emergency. But calling meant exposing everything. It meant Chairwoman Khan would know. It meant Malik would become a pawn in a war Ramada had fled to avoid. It meant the end of their invisible life. Through the stairwell window, she could see the ICU, Malik's small form barely visible beneath blankets, his chest rising and falling too shallowly. Ramada's hand stopped shaking. She pressed call. The line connected on the second ring. Yes. His voice was sharper now. Harder. 6 years of distance compressed into a single word. You don't know me anymore, Ramada said quietly. But you have 6 minutes to listen, before my son dies. Silence. Then, who is this? She closed her eyes. My name is Ramada. And Malik Khan needs your blood. 41 minutes later. Siwoo arrived without an entourage. No security detail. No assistant. No carefully managed entrance. Just a man in a dark coat, moving through the hospital like a ghost, his face carved from stone. Ramada stood when she saw him. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across the ICU waiting room, 6 years of silence, betrayal, and unanswered questions hanging between them. He looked older. Leaner. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Show me," he said finally. Ramada led him to the glass partition. Malik lay in bed unconscious, his curls spread across the pillow like a dark halo. Even through tubes and monitors, the resemblance was undeniable. Siwoo's breath caught audibly. His name. His voice was barely a whisper. Malik. Malik Khan. You gave him my name. I gave him the truth. Even if I couldn't tell him. Siwoo pressed his palm against the glass, fingers splayed as if he could touch the sun he'd never known existed. His jaw worked, but no sound came out. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. He has my eyes. Yes. He stopped. Swallowed. Tried again. How old? 6. He turned 6 in February. Siwoo did the math instantly. His hand curled into a fist against the glass. You were pregnant when you left. Yes. You didn't tell me. Your mother made it clear what would happen if I stayed. Ramada's voice was steady, but her eyes glistened. I chose his safety over your company. You should have chosen me. The words were raw, furious, devastated. You didn't get a choice, Siwoo. That's what your mother promised. Before he could respond, Dr. Park appeared. Mr. Khan. We're ready to begin the transfusion. If you'll follow me. They set up 2 beds side by side in a private room. Malik on one side, small, fragile, fighting for breath. Siwoo on the other, lying back as nurses inserted the 4-line. Ramada stood between them, watching as Siwoo's blood, rare, precious, identical, began flowing through clear tubing toward the son he'd just discovered. Does he know? Siwoo asked quietly, eyes fixed on Malik's face. About me? He knows he has a father. He doesn't know it's you. Will you tell him? I don't know. Ramada's voice broke. I don't know what happens next. Siwoo turned his head to look at her fully. His eyes were wet but his voice was steel. What happens next is simple. When he lives, and he will live, you don't disappear again. Not from me. Not from him. Not ever. It wasn't a request. It was a vow. 3 hours later. Malik's monitors steadied. His color returned, slowly, like dawn breaking over gray water. Dr. Park checked his vitals and nodded. He's stabilizing. The transfusion worked. Siwoo hadn't moved from the adjacent bed, still connected by the 4-line even though the transfusion had finished. He just lay there, watching his son breathe. Ramada sat in the chair between them, one hand on Malik's small fingers, the other unconsciously resting near Siwoo's arm. Thank you, she whispered. Siwoo's eyes never left Malik. Don't thank me for saving my own son. Outside, Seoul's lights glittered against the night sky. And in that hospital room, 3 lives, separated by secrets, bound by blood, began the impossible work of becoming a family. Chairwoman Kong arrived at dawn. Ramada heard her before she saw her, the sharp click of heels on hospital tile, the hushed voices of staff scrambling to accommodate her presence. Then the ICU doors opened, and there she stood. 6 years older. Perfectly composed. Dressed in black Chanel like she was attending a funeral. In a way, she was. Her eyes swept the room, Malik sleeping peacefully now, color returned to his cheeks, Siwoo sitting beside the bed, still in yesterday's clothes, hand resting protectively near his son's, and Ramada, standing by the window like a ghost who'd refused to stay buried. "Out," Chairwoman Kong said to the nurses. They fled. The door clicked shut, sealing the four of them in terrible silence. "So," Chairwoman Kang's voice was ice over steel. "This is what you've been hiding." Siwoo stood slowly, placing himself between his mother and Malik's bed. "His name is Malik. I don't care what she named him." The chairwoman's gaze fixed on Ramada. "I gave you money. I gave you an exit. And instead you stayed in my country, raising my grandson in secret like some shameful mistake." "He's not a mistake," Ramada said quietly. "He is a liability." Chairwoman Kong moved closer, her eyes cataloging Malik's features with clinical precision. A mixed-race illegitimate child with no legal standing, no social position, and a mother who thought she could hide him forever. "I hid him from you," Ramada clarified. "There's a difference." "Mother." Siwoo's voice was low, dangerous. "Step away from his bed." Chairwoman Kong ignored him, pulling out her phone instead. "I'm calling our legal team. We'll need to contain this before." "Before what?" Siwoo's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Before the world finds out I have a son. Before this scandal destroys everything your father built." She turned to face him fully now. "Do you have any idea what the press will do with this? Billionaire CEO's secret love child. Congener born out of wedlock. The board will crucify you. Let them." The words hung in the air. Chairwoman Kong went very still. "What did you say?" "I said let them." Siwoo's hands were steady now, his voice clearer than Ramada had ever heard it. "I spent 38 years building what you wanted. Becoming who you needed. Sacrificing everything that made me human for the sake of an empire built on my father's grave. Your father died for that empire. My father died because he worked himself to death trying to meet impossible standards." Siwoo's voice cracked. "And you've spent 26 years making sure I did the same. Well, I'm done. You're emotional. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years." He gestured to Malik. "That child almost died last night. My son. And I didn't even know he existed because you made his mother so terrified of you that she vanished rather than risk his safety." Chairwoman Kang's expression hardened. "I was protecting you. You were protecting the company. There's a difference. The company is your legacy." "No." The word echoed. "He is my legacy. That boy. That's what I leave behind. Not stock prices. Not board seats. Him." Chairwoman Kang's control finally fractured. "If you acknowledge this child publicly, I will have no choice but to pursue custody." Her voice was venomous now, the elegant mask slipping. "His mother is financially unstable. No legal standing. Living under an assumed name. Any family court in Korea will grant me guardianship." Ramada's blood turned to ice. "You wouldn't," Siwoo breathed. "I will do whatever is necessary to protect this family's reputation." Chairwoman Kong straightened her jacket. "The child can be raised properly. Privately. With the Kong name but without the scandal. We'll claim he was from a previous undisclosed relationship, properly documented now. The mother will sign over parental rights in exchange for." "Get out." The words were quiet. Absolute. Chairwoman Kong blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said get out." Siwoo moved closer to her, and for the first time in his life, his mother took a step back. "You will not touch my son. You will not threaten his mother. And you will not dictate one more second of my life. Siwoo. I'm resigning from Kongjin Holdings effective immediately." The announcement detonated like a bomb. "You can't." "I can. I will." If the company cannot survive my son's existence, then it doesn't deserve to survive at all. His voice was granite. You built this empire by sacrificing everything human. I won't do the same. Chairwoman Kang's face went white with rage. You will lose everything. Your position. Your reputation. Your entire future. I already lost 6 years with my son. Siwoo glanced at Malik, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the war being waged over his existence. I won't lose another day. The standoff lasted 7 seconds. Then Chairwoman Kang turned on her heel and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she looked back, not at Siwoo, but at Ramada. This isn't over. The door closed. Ramada's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, hands shaking. Siwoo knelt beside her. She can't take him. You don't know that. She has resources, lawyers. And I have something she doesn't. He took her hand. I have the truth. And I'm not afraid of it anymore. 8 hours later. The leak hit the internet at 2 p.m. Anonymous sources. Blurry photos of Siwoo entering the hospital. Speculation about a family emergency. By 4 p.m., financial blogs were questioning his fitness to lead. By 6 p.m., gossip sites had found Malik's school records. By 8 p.m., the headlines were everywhere. Kanjin CEO's secret son, scandal rocks Korean business elite. Who is the mystery woman who disappeared 6 years ago? Billionaire's hidden family, love child or calculated risk? Siwoo stood at the hospital window, watching his carefully constructed life burn across every screen in Seoul. I need to make a statement, he said quietly. Ramada looked at Malik, still sleeping, still innocent, still unaware that his entire world was about to change. What will you say? Siwoo's jaw tightened. The truth. All of it. Outside, cameras were already gathering. The war had begun. The headlines got worse before they got better. Mixed-race love child threatens Kangjin dynasty. CEO's secret shame, black mistress, hidden son. Purity lost, how Siwoo Kang betrayed Korean values. Ramada stopped reading after the first day. But she couldn't escape the photos, paparazzi shots of her walking into the hospital, grainy images of Malik from his school website, side-by-side comparisons of her face and Siwoo's with captions like, the scandal that shocked Korea. Stock prices for Kangjin Holdings dropped 14% in 2 days. Board members called emergency meetings. Comment sections filled with poison. They're destroying us, Ramada whispered, staring at her phone in the hospital's private waiting room. Siwoo looked up from where he sat beside Malik's bed. The boy was awake now, recovering, but still too weak to fully understand the chaos swirling around him. They're destroying themselves, Siwoo corrected quietly. We're just refusing to hide anymore. Siwoo, the company. The company, he interrupted, survived my father's death, the 2008 financial crisis, and 3 hostile takeover attempts. It will survive this. Or it won't. Either way, I'm done sacrificing my family for shareholders. Day 3. Malik was finally strong enough to ask questions. Mama, why are there people with cameras outside? Ramada's heart clenched. They're interested in our story. What story? Siwoo and Ramada exchanged glances. They'd agreed to wait, to let him heal first. But Malik was too smart to be distracted by vague answers. Malik, Siwoo said gently, pulling a chair closer to the bed. Do you remember asking your mother about your father? The boy's eyes widened. He looked between them, processing. You're my dad. Yes. Silence. Then, why didn't you tell me before? The question was so simple, so impossibly complicated. Because I didn't know you existed, Siwoo said, his voice cracking. And when I found out, you were very sick. But now that you're better, I want you to know that I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Malik studied him with those serious eyes identical to Siwoo's. Do you want to be my dad? More than anything in the world. Malik nodded slowly, then looked at Ramada. Is it okay? She couldn't speak. Just nodded through tears. Okay, Malik said. Then, with heartbreaking pragmatism, can we still live in our apartment? I like my room. Siwoo laughed, a broken, beautiful sound. We'll figure it out. Together. Day 5. Siwoo called the press conference against every advisor's recommendation. Don't do this, his PR team begged. Let it blow over. Issue a written statement. Settle privately. No. Siwoo straightened his tie in the mirror. Privacy is what created this mess. Transparency is what ends it. The conference room at Kongjin Holdings was packed, journalists, cameras, investors, and protesters outside holding signs in both support and condemnation. Chairwoman Kong sat in the back row, her face an expressionless mask. At exactly 2 p.m., the doors opened. Siwoo walked in holding Malik's hand. The room erupted in camera flashes. Malik wore a simple blue shirt and looked terrified. Siwoo squeezed his hand gently, then stepped to the microphone. Thank you for coming. His voice was steady, clear. I'm here to address the speculation surrounding my family. I'll keep this brief because my son has been through enough already. He paused, looking down at Malik, then back at the cameras. 6 years ago, I met a woman named Ramada Diallo. She was brilliant, principled, and unafraid, everything I needed and nothing I deserved. We fell in love. But circumstances beyond our control forced her to leave Korea while pregnant with our child. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I did not know about my son until 5 days ago, when he nearly died from a rare blood disorder. The only reason Malik is alive today is because his mother was brave enough to contact me, knowing it would expose her to exactly this kind of scrutiny. He gestured to the room, to the cameras, to the chaos. Ramada Diallo spent 6 years raising our son alone. She worked multiple jobs. She kept him safe, educated, loved. She did what I failed to do, she put his needs before everything else. Including her own safety. Siwoo's voice grew stronger. So before you ask me about scandals or stock prices or damaged reputations, understand this, I am not ashamed of my son. I am ashamed it took a medical emergency for me to find him. I am ashamed I wasn't there for his first word, his first day of school, every moment in between. He crouched down to Malik's level, speaking directly to him now, though the microphones caught every word. Malik, I'm sorry I wasn't there. But I promise you, I'm here now. Then Siwoo stood, turned, and saw Ramada standing at the side entrance. She'd refused to be on stage, but he'd convinced her to at least be present. He walked away from the microphone, away from the cameras, and stopped in front of her. And then Siwoo Kong, CEO of a multi-billion-won empire, heir to one of Korea's most powerful families, bowed. Not the perfunctory nod of business courtesy. A full, deep bow of respect and gratitude. The room fell absolutely silent. When he straightened, there were tears on his face. Thank you, he said quietly, just to her. For keeping him alive. For being strong enough when I wasn't there. Ramada's lips trembled. Siwoo. And thank you, he continued, louder now, turning back to the microphone, for teaching me what courage actually looks like. The questions came in a barrage, but Siwoo raised his hand. I have one final announcement. He took a breath. Effective in 3 months, I will be stepping down as CEO of Kongjin Holdings. I will remain on the board in an advisory capacity, but operational control will transfer to the existing succession plan. Chaos erupted. In the back row, Chairwoman Kang's mask finally cracked, shock, rage, and something that might have been grief flashing across her face. But Siwoo was already walking off the stage, Malik's hand in his, Ramada beside him. Together. Visible. Free. Outside, protesters shouted. Cameras flashed. The internet exploded with hot takes. But inside the car carrying them away from Kongjin Holdings, Malik looked up at his father and asked, "What happens now?" Siwoo glanced at Ramada, then back at his son. "Now. We figure out how to be a family. Will it be hard?" "Probably." Malik considered this. Then, with the simple wisdom of a 6-year-old, "That's okay. Hard things are usually worth it." Siwoo pulled his son close, meeting Ramada's eyes over Malik's head. "Yes," he whispered. "They are." 3 months later. Malik's recovery was slow, careful, miraculous. The doctors monitored his blood levels weekly, then bi-weekly, then monthly. Color returned to his cheeks. Energy returned to his limbs. By week 6, he was asking when he could go back to school. By week 10, he was building elaborate structures out of blocks and explaining their architectural principles to anyone who would listen. "He's going to be an engineer," Siwoo said one afternoon, watching Malik calculate load-bearing stress for a tower made of wooden blocks. "Or a scientist," Ramada added. "Or a philosopher. Or all three. He has time to decide." For the first time in 6 years, that felt true. Siwoo's transition out of Kongjin Holdings was quieter than the scandal that preceded it. He stayed on for 3 months, training his successor, a brilliant woman from the company's logistics division who'd been overlooked for years. He restructured the board to include more diverse voices. He established a foundation in his father's name focused on medical research for rare blood disorders. And then, on a Tuesday in May, he cleared out his office. No press conference. No dramatic exit. Just a man carrying a box of personal items to his car, while his son waited in the lobby drawing pictures of buildings that touched the sky. "Are you sad?" Malik asked on the drive home. Siwoo considered the question seriously, the way he'd learned to do, the way Malik deserved. "No," he said finally. "I thought I would be. But I'm not." "What are you?" "Relieved." Malik nodded like this made perfect sense. "Mama says relief is what happens when you stop carrying things that were never yours to carry." Siwoo glanced in the rearview mirror, meeting Ramada's eyes. She smiled. "Your mama is very wise," he said. 6 months later. They didn't move to a mansion or a penthouse or anything that screamed wealth. Instead, they found a modest house in Songbuk-dong, 3 bedrooms, a small garden, close to a good school. It had high ceilings and large windows and space for Malik's growing collection of science books. Ramada kept her translation work, though now she could be selective about contracts. Siwoo consulted occasionally but spent most of his time learning how to be present, how to make breakfast, attend parent-teacher conferences, build block towers that Malik immediately improved upon. "You're getting better at this," Ramada said one morning, watching him attempt to braid Malik's hair for school. "At braiding?" "At living." Siwoo's hands stilled. "I spent 38 years performing. I'm still learning how to just be." "You're doing fine." She kissed his temple. "We all are." 1 year later. The scandal faded the way all scandals do, replaced by newer headlines, fresher outrage, the next crisis. Kongjin Holdings stabilized under new leadership. Stock prices recovered. The company even began implementing some of Siwoo's reform proposals, diversity initiatives, work-life balance policies, transparent succession planning. Chairwoman Kong remained on the board but diminished in power. She and Siwoo spoke rarely, and when they did, it was cordial but distant. She'd never apologized. Siwoo had stopped waiting for one. She'd met Malik exactly once, a stiff 15-minute encounter where she'd examined her grandson like a museum piece and left without warmth or promises. "Will she ever love me?" Malik asked afterward. Siwoo pulled him close. I don't know. But you don't need her love to be whole. You already have everything you need. I have you and Mama. Yes. You do. 2 years later. Ramada stood in the garden watching Siwoo teach Malik how to plant tomatoes. You have to be gentle with the roots, Siwoo explained, demonstrating. They're delicate. Strong, but delicate. Like people? Malik asked. Exactly like people. Ramada's phone buzzed, a message from a former colleague in Paris, asking if she'd ever consider returning to corporate consulting. She deleted it without responding. Some chapters were meant to close. That evening, after Malik went to bed, Siwoo and Ramada sat on the back porch. Seoul glittered in the distance, close enough to see, far enough to breathe. Do you ever regret it? Ramada asked quietly. Giving up the company? Siwoo was silent for a long moment. I regret that it took almost losing him to find him, he said finally. I regret the years I missed. But stepping down? No. That wasn't giving up. That was choosing what mattered. And what matters? He took her hand. This. Right here. A boy who knows his father's voice. A woman who doesn't have to hide. A life built on truth instead of performance. It's smaller than what you had. It's bigger than anything I've ever built. Inside, Malik called out. Dad? Can you check my math homework? Dad. The word still made Siwoo's chest tighten with wonder. Coming, he called back. Ramada squeezed his hand before he stood. Thank you. For what? For showing up. Even when it cost everything. Siwoo kissed her forehead. That's not a cost. That's the whole point. 3 people in a small house on the edge of Seoul. No empire. No scandal. No cameras. Just a mother who stopped running. A father who learned to live. And a boy who no longer had to wonder where he came from. Because he finally knew where he belonged. Sometimes power isn't measured in boardrooms or headlines. Sometimes it's measured in the quiet moments when you choose love over legacy. When you show up, even when the world is watching. Even when it costs everything. Especially then. Siwoo Kong didn't save his son with blood alone. He saved him by finally learning what it meant to be human. And in doing so, he discovered the only empire worth building. A family that didn't have to hide.